AEW has banned moves in an effort to, quote, minimize risk. This according to Fightful Select. Sean Ross Sapp with a report here. And it lays out a lot of things that are now banned in AEW and things that will now need approval beforehand. I'm going to go through the entire list. I'm going to talk about each thing individually. So stick around. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. So there's two sections of this, and as you can see, I've already put this up here. There's two sections of this. One is outright banned moves, actions for AEW wrestlers. And then the other one are things that need pre-approval beforehand that didn't necessarily, or at least that we know of, didn't necessarily need that in the past. So I'll go through it and we'll talk about these things individually. Again, this is great reporting from Fightful Select. I highly recommend you guys go subscribe to them on their Patreon, FightfulSelect.com. Sean Ross Sapp with another great report so I can make this video. Anyway, let's talk about these banned moves and actions here. We have chair shots to the head, chair shots to the back of the head, buckle bomb, moves where a wrestler falls backwards into the turnbuckle, imitating a concussion or seizure symptoms while selling a move, spitting, bleeding while in the crowd, using weapons or projectiles in the crowd, throwing anything with blood into the crowd, taking food or drink from fans in the crowd, and making contact with fans in the crowd. So obviously, there's a lot that I just went over there, and I just want to list it out before we went into these individually. The first two, I think, are the most obvious ones and the least surprising, you would think, on this list. Chair shots to the head, chair shots to the back of the head. This is something that we have come to know a lot more about, and the effects of which we've come to know a lot more about over the past decade or two. Chair shots to the head, concussions, these things not only impact the immediate aftermath of that person's life, they also impact the long-term health and viability and you know, quality of life of wrestlers as they get older. Like, you can ask a whole plethora of wrestlers who are now retired how they feel and whether they regret spots, and a lot of them do. And chair shots to the head are proven to be just bad for the long-term health of professional wrestlers. And I want to just go a little more high level on this. This whole thing, right? I want to be clear. This whole banned moves thing, banned stuff, I don't think this is a bad thing for AEW. I want to be clear about that before we move on. I think that a lot of this is establishing procedures, guardrails, and a little more regulation and official policy, and putting official policies in place that do two things. One, like, just make sure that wrestlers don't get hurt as often as they might. And I think with AEW having injuries and injuries like really derailing a lot of what the past year of AEW could have been, I think that obviously played a part into it. But also, AEW wants to make sure that they are doing what they can to minimize their own liability as a company and make sure that people want to work in a place that has these policies in place so that wrestlers feel safe, so that fans can watch this with a little less, feeling of, oh man, I hope they don't do one of these terrible things that I don't want to see on my TV screen. And chair shots to the head, chair shots at the back of the head, that type of stuff is a part of this. So again, I think overall, this is a very positive thing for AEW having these policies in place. This is just something that they needed to do and they got big enough to do, and it's a good thing. I really do think a lot of this is a good thing. Does that mean I agree with every single thing on this list? No, but I'll let you know about that in just a second, because there is one thing here that I'm kind of like, But chair shots to the head, chair shots to the back of the head. I mean, this is a no-brainer. They should have done this. Obviously, we all remember the Shawn Spears fiasco that happened at Fight for the Fallen or Fyter Fest in 2019 when he hit Cody Rhodes with what was supposed to be a gimmick chair, ended up not being a gimmick chair, and it ended up splicing Cody Rhodes' head wide the hell open. We don't need that. I'm fine with this. You share shots at the back, share shots to the leg and everything. That's fine. We are fine. We can find other ways to torment each other in the ring, right, guys? Moving on, buckle bombs. So, and buckle bombs and moves where the wrestler falls backwards into the turnbuckle. These two also kind of go hand in hand. And as far as buckle bombs go, there's a lot of talk about, the way that Sting got injured back in 2015 when he was wrestling Seth Rollins, that in effect ended his career, or at least we thought it ended his career. And, obviously, like, there are some situations where, the buckle bomb, I think, is more dangerous than others. It depends on the type of turnbuckle you're using, depends on, the rope and how much padding you have. Like, there's companies, like I would say, like New Japan, they have a much, much thicker turnbuckle, and it's a lot easier to take a bump there rather than, like AEW, who used wired ropes and a lot of metal in the ring and who have a fairly thin pad. I think that, like it's a bit of a no-brainer here. Like, buckle bombs, like, are they necessary? No. Could there be a scenario or two where you could have those happen and you could probably like get away with it? Sure. But I mean, look, for me and my taste in professional wrestling, you don't need to necessarily do a buckle bomb all the time. I would rather not have that in my pro wrestling. Now, where it comes to moves where the wrestler falls backwards into the turnbuckle, I hope the Irish whip into the corner isn't part of it. You would think it's not, right? Like, common sense would tell you that it's not. However, if that is the case, it's a bit weird because it's like one of the most traditional and I mean, I don't want to say safest because obviously I've never taken one, but like it seems like the person who is essentially whipping themselves into the corner. So like, and they have control over that. So I mean, I don't think that that's it. I would hope not, but I guess we'll find out on Collision, won't we, when this does or doesn't happen. So again, just generally throwing people into the corner, I'm fine with not doing that, considering, the AEW doesn't have a lot of padding on their turnbuckles. Moving on, we have in imitating concussions or seizure symptoms while selling a move. So this right here, I think, is a bit of a Bryan Danielson rule right here, because Bryan Danielson, of course, has talked at length about concussions, his history with concussion, the fact that he used to get seizures when he would wrestle in WWE. At night, he would get seizures in the hotel room. I think he mentioned one time he was in a hotel like after a show and he had a seizure and he tried to hide it, but he couldn't. It was like a very scary thing. And we've seen him kind of like, I don't think he's done the seizure spot in AEW, but he has like done a lot of very like scary, for me, especially someone who Bryan Danielson is my favorite wrestler. He's done a lot of things sometimes that are like, yo, are you really hurt? Please don't be faking this. I don't want to see this. So I get why they're doing it too, because with the sensitivity around concussions, with the fact that concussions, like I said before, impact the long-term quality of life for a lot of professional wrestlers. When something like that does happen, you want to spring into action as quickly as possible if you're the medical staff, and you want to make sure that the wrestlers are as safe as humanly possible. So I don't have a problem with this. Like, if you're a doctor at ringside and you see someone doing this and it's just like they're working it, it's still going to raise concern. And I think it's better for them to not. Now, does this mean like when someone gets hit like in the head or something and they do like the dazed and confused spot or whatever, like that's banned? I doubt it. I think a lot of this is just like common sense. Like it's less of, oh, no dazed and confused spots where you're like, oh my God, oh, he's moving around like this. I don't think it's that. I think it's more of like no fencing. Like obviously we all remember the Tua Tagovailoa in the NFL, the Tua Tagovailoa incident where he went into the fencing position after a concussion, and his fingers kind of like went stiff. Like that type of stuff, obviously, I think is that's towing a line that the AEW obviously does not want to cross. So I think generally that's a good thing. Moving on, we have one thing here that I don't necessarily agree with, and that is spitting. Now, it's not said here in the in the report by Fightful Select, whether or not this means like spitting into the crowd or in general. It seems to me, and the way I'm interpreting this is everything else has in the crowd in it, like as you can see, bleeding, weapons, all that stuff. This one doesn't, so I think this is in general, no spitting. And look, I'm not saying like I need spitting in my professional wrestling, no. But it seems to me like a kind of a weird thing to ban. Like, obviously, I don't think you should spit on fans or anything like that. But like, in general, I mean, there's some times where like that. I don't know. Again, I don't know the reason behind each one of these individually. It just seems like a bit of a one that's out of place here. Like I think this is something like in certain situations it actually adds to a feud. Like Randy Orton versus Mick Foley, right? That back in 2004, that feud, like the biggest visual of that feud was Mick Foley getting spat in the face by Randy Orton because he was the cocky young upstart, the legend killer, who was disrespecting all the legends. And there's nothing that's more disrespectful than a spit in the face. Again, I'm not saying that you need to do this like every week. This is not a traditional wrestling move, but for me, of all of these, I think this is the most out of place one. Moving on, we have bleeding while in the crowd, using weapons or projectiles in the crowd, throwing anything with blood on it into the crowd, taking food or drink from fans in the crowd, making contact with fans in the crowd. Okay. So I'm going to say this, and people are going to get mad. The first three of those, I think, you can attribute to not the blood and guts, what's it called? The Anarchy in the Arena. Those seem like problems that may have arisen during Anarchy in the Arena. I know that fans, and I was there at Double or Nothing this past year, so I got to witness a lot of this. I know there were fans who got blood on some of their clothes. I know there were fans who were nearly struck with like some weapons, who were nearly struck with some moves. It happens when you're fighting into the crowd. So I get why this is AEW minimizing the risk of fans getting injured, which, yes, of course, like, fans are you want to be a part of the show. You want to be a part of the production, all that stuff. I get that. And you want to enjoy yourselves at wrestling shows, but fans do not need to be literally a part of the action. And this is fine. This is totally fine with me. I don't want to get blood on my clothes. Although I ain't gonna lie to you, if I got John Moxley blood on one of my shoes, that thing's never getting washed. It's like that's going into framing that on my wall over here, and you know, I mean. Because it's a bit of a cool thing. I'm also a bit of a weird guy. It's okay. Anyway, so that's fine. And then the last few things here, taking food or drink from fans in the crowd, making contact with fans in the crowd. Yeah, this has MJF written all over it, doesn't it? Of course, you all remember the fiasco, the incident with MJF throwing the liquid, the beverage, at that very young child and getting in trouble for it. That child's mother was not in any way happy, and you can't blame it. There was, I think, a rumor going around that it wasn't even water. It was some sort of alcoholic beverage, which is not great. And again, I think common sense here, like is it? I think I want to be clear here. Like, I think it's different if MJF takes or someone takes a beer from the crowd and drinks it. That's a little different than it's completely different, I should say, than and what MJF did. I think again, a lot of this is more so just common sense stuff rather than this is strictly prohibited. Like chair shots strictly prohibited, but you're not gonna be making contact with the fans in the crowd. You're of course gonna still be able to handshake, dap up, and all that kind of stuff, but you're not gonna be hitting fans or fake hitting fans or anything like that. Again, a lot of people are going to get worked up by this stuff, but I think most of this is just common sense stuff. The only one of the quote-unquote banned moves or actions here that for me feels a little out of place is spitting, because I feel like everything else is mostly common sense. The rest of it is just, and then spitting is just kind of overall, obviously don't spit at fans, but overall, I don't know. But again, I mean, I don't need it in my pro wrestling. It is what it is. So that was the ban moves part. Now, here is the more extensive list of moves and actions that are going to require pre-approval. And I want to be clear here. In the report, it says, basically, these actions need approval from coaches, producers, and management in general. So like I'm gonna go through I think half this list and list it out, and then I'll go through each one individually, and then I'll go through the other half and then go through each one individually. So let's take a look at what we got here. Spots and bumps on the ring apron on the outside. Tables, ladders, and chair spots on the outside only allowed with padding. Any elevated spots outside of the barricades, dives, ladders, spots around the arena, and other places outside of the ring. All pile drivers and tombstone variations, including sit-down pile drivers, inverted poison hurricane ranas, and vertebreakers. That's interesting. High-risk dives over the top rope, 450s, 630s, double moonsaults, etc. Shooting star press as well. Any physicality in the crowd or brawling needs to be pre-approved, and any physicality involving referees, managers, extras, or celebrity guests. Again, I want to be clear. These are not banned moves. Do not say that these are banned moves. These are moves that just need pre-approval beforehand. And there's a few reasons for that. Let me talk about that first, like potential reasons for why this might be the case. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God, AEW is trying to restrict what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think when you're AEW and you're a company that, needs to put these policies in place, it's just generally good to know what's going on your show, because one issue that I've had with AEW is the fact that you see a lot of the same stuff happen on your weekly TV shows. Like on the same night, you see a lot of the same moves, same stuff happen. And I'm not saying like it's not cool and you don't love to see it, but like I think this is gonna make AEW maybe like put a little more variety into their shows and do more and interesting moves and make them think a little more creatively, rather than, oh my God, let's do a hurricane rana here, let's do a dive to the outside here, hurricane rana here, dive to the outside here. I think like this is more so like, hey, let's list out all the moves that are gonna be in this match. Maybe we don't need to have 3 pile drivers back to back matches or anything like that. Again, common sense is the what guides, I think, a lot of this. Now, the other reason, obviously, I think that this is in place is also just so everyone knows what's going on. Another thing that I don't like about AEW TV and the production is production misses a lot of spots. Like, that's just probably, I don't even think it's a controversial take. It's just a truth take. Production in AEW misses a lot of spots, and there are a lot of times where you're just watching like, oh my God, I just saw Orange Cassidy do it, or I should have seen Orange Cassidy do a dive to the outside. So when you have those written down, pre-approved, whatever, it's going to allow the production team, whoever's in the truck and directing the show, it's going to allow them to know what's coming and be on the lookout for that kind of stuff. So again, a lot of this, I think, is just to have policies and procedures in place to make the show better, safer, all that stuff. Now, like, I'll go through some of these individually. Spots and bumps on the ring apron and on the outside. Like, of course, I think that's like what I call like the Kevin Owens spot, because what's Kevin Owens' go-to move on the outside? It's doing that pop-up power bomb onto the ring apron. Bro, that is the hardest part of the ring. Getting pre-approval for that kind of stuff, I think, is a good thing, because we don't want like Swerve Strickland or whoever taking that bump every single or every other week. Like, you only got a certain amount of bumps in you as a pro wrestler. Like, it's fine, I think. Tables, ladders, chair spots in and out of the ring. Now, it says only allowed with padding. I think the ring counts as a padding area. And I, of course, this is not listed out in the report, so this is just me speculating here. When they say out of the ring with padding, I assume that the padding on the outside, like the ring padding on the outside that they have, the black padding is fine, and you can do the spots there. I think what they might be referring to is potentially not allowed here is on like the concrete where the fans are, and again, that goes to like action where the fans are, which is generally fine, I think. We got elevated spots on the outside of the barricades, dives, ladders, and other places outside the ring. Again, common sense here, guys. Like, hey, I'm going to be doing this, just so you know, just so production knows, just so we know, so security knows, so they can get fans out of the way potentially. Like, this is just logistical stuff. Here's where it impacts, I think, the professional wrestling that people want. All pile drivers, tombstone variations, including sit downs, inverted poison hurricane ranas, and vertebreakers, need to be pre-approved. Thoughts on this? Of course, for a very long time, WWE had banned the pile driver, and it got to the point where you never saw it, and we thought for a while we were never going to see it. The only person who was allowed to do it was The Undertaker for a while. And when CM Punk, I think, pulled it out on John Cena back in like 2011, it became a really cool thing. Like, it got a massive pop. And, you know, like, it shows you, like, how, like, people, like, really noticed how missing that move was. Does this mean we will likely see less pile drivers and things like that? Potentially. I think, but also, this is not banned. Like, that's the other thing. I don't want to keep repeating myself here because I know this is a long video already. But none of this, like none of these things are explicitly banned. It's just, hey, let's have a conversation about whether or not this is necessary. Let's have a conversation about the reason for this. Let's just have a conversation and like run it past me so I know to shoot it when it happens. Like, I think that's what a lot of this is. I think the same principle applies to top rope moves. Physicality in the crowd and brawling. Of course, I think that's a security measure because security should know where you're going to be brawling, how long you're going to be brawling there, and the best, and so they can plan the best way to get fans out of the way and protect both you, the wrestler, and protect the fans as well. The other one is any physicality involving referees, managers, extra celebrities. Again, common sense principle. I'm not going to go deep into this. It's just common sense. Tell people what the hell you're going to be doing, right? All right, let's go through the last few things on this list. Injury spots or angles, whether or not medical is involved / called to the ring. Intentional bleeding of any kind needs to be pre-approved. Throwing people into, through / over ring steps, commentary table, bell, or guardrails. Weapons, any use of weapons, and they list out all the weapons. Throwing any weapons or objects or chairs, choking, strangling with the hands or hanging spots. All right. This is where I think it gets, I'm not going to say controversial, but this is, I think, where it gets to an interesting conversation. Injury spots and angles, whether or not medical is involved. So, like, regardless of if they do this, the Roderick Strong spot from a few weeks ago where they have to bring out, like, Doc Samson and all that stuff as a work. Regardless of that, even, like, any sort of injury angle needs to be pre-approved. The interesting thing here is, like, you know, to what extent, and I think, again, I lean on the side of common sense with this, and I think, I hope AEW does. I think that's how I'm interpreting it. I think, like, generally, like, things like, you know, Sammy Guevara or, you know, whoever, right? Like, frigging Sean Spears, whoever, right? Like, if they're selling, like, their knee or something, or if they're selling an elbow, a shoulder, Bryan Danielson selling whatever, that's general. I think that doesn't need to be necessarily pre-approved because that's, like, you're in the flow of a match. But if, like, you're, like, knocked out cold or quote-unquote cold, or they have something like Roderick Strong or, like, something like that, then I think that's just, hey, we're going to be doing this angle. Approve. Cool. Next, you have intentional bleeding of any sort. So this is not even just blading. This is, like, hard way stuff, too. This is where I think the only person that's going to be, like, have the biggest problem with this is probably Jon Moxley. And I don't disagree with this. I think, hey, going to be bleeding. Now, sometimes, obviously, wrestlers just get color. Like, that just happens. Like, it's completely unintentional. I think that's why it says intentional. And it's easier, I think, to tell when things are intentional / not intentional. So, like, if you have a situation where, you know, like, someone gets hit with an aired elbow strike and they just, like, literally start bleeding, like, no one's going to get in trouble for that. No one's going to, like, I think these are, again, just guardrails that are meant so everyone knows what's going on, so everything's just as safe as possible and everyone's prepared for whatever situations. Like, that's what this comes down to. Here's where this gets interesting. Throwing people into, through, over ring steps, commentary table, and bell table. So, and guardrails and barricades as well. So this is where I think, you know, it's not an apples to apples comparison for all these things. Commentary table and bell table, and even guardrails to an extent, right? Those are three areas where I understand it because you have other people there. For commentary, you have Excalibur, JR, etc. there. So it would be good for them to know when someone's being thrown there. Same thing for Justin Roberts and the crew over there at the bell table. For the ring steps, that's an interesting one because sometimes that just happens. I don't know. Like you've heard wrestlers be like, yeah, throw them into ring steps. Like that might be a way to like kill time or like go into a commercial break. I know that's a thing, but again, this is not like something like, oh my God, I'm angry. Like AEW is not doing it. Like it's just like I think like of all things, like I get why, but that of all the things is a little out of place. Everything else, I'm like, yes, commentary table, like JR or whoever should know when people are coming at them. Same with Shivani, same with Justin Roberts over there at the bell table. Everyone, like they should be aware if in a match someone's going to come barreling at them so they can get the hell out of the way. Weapons usage. All weapons usage needs to be approved. This includes aerosol spray and liquids. Talking to you, Outcast. Talking to you, Brandon Cutler and company. So, yeah, I mean, like, if you're going to use weapons, let them know. And get the weapons pre-approved is the thing here. And, I mean, yeah, there's like this weird like obsession with pro wrestling fans like, oh, this means that they're not going to be banning weapons. AEW going soft. No, that's not what this is. Just again, common sense. The throwing of weapons and chairs, I think, kind of goes along with that. Last one here: choking/strangling with your hands or a weapon in hanging spots. Again, there's an element of danger in these types of spots, especially hanging spots. It would be good for everyone to know what's going on in case something goes wrong. That is what all of this is about. I'm fine with this. Like, literally, the biggest quote-unquote problem I have with this was, and it's not even a problem, it's only like the thing that kind of makes me scratch my head a bit, is like the spitting thing. And even that, I'm like, well, okay, who cares? I don't need that in my pro wrestling. So, safety, transparency, and trust, I think, is at the core of all of this. I don't think this is going to make AEW worse to watch. Is it potentially true that the reason for this is because AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery want to be a little more communicative about what's going on and what's happening with the professional wrestling, what's happening in the ring and all that potentially. But I think this is more so about safety. I think this is more so about making sure everyone's on the same page, transparency. Like that's the only way you have trust. And the AEW locker room for the past year, trust has been a bit of a thing that has been reportedly waning at certain points. So hopefully this helps with things. I hope it does. I'm fine with this. This is cool. It's all about just establishing guardrails. It's fine. But I know a lot of you are going to disagree, so I want to hear from you in the comment section. What do you think about AEW's banned list? What do you think about AEW's moves and actions that require pre-approval list? What stands out to you? I want to hear from you in the comment section below. Drop them in. Also, if you haven't already done so, do me a big time favor. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever new videos are released. For those of you who have watched till the end, I especially want to thank you because you are probably the biggest fans of this channel. And as you know, we recently got to 11,000 subscribers. Personally, Omer Q here, I want to thank you, each and every one of you. It's not something that I thought would happen as quickly as it did, and it's something that I just think is cool. The fact that you guys, enjoy the content so much that you're willing to subscribe and even push a button is just insane to me, and I appreciate it. This channel is going to be dedicated to y'all, and I hope this community can grow. I hope this community can foster into one of the best, if not the best, wrestling community in the entire YouTube, internet sphere, whatever. That's my goal. And I also just want to put out some dope content and talk about wrestling because that's what I love to do. So if you guys haven't, hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thank you all for all of the love that you've given this channel. I appreciate all of you. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.